Hello, this is Around the World in 10 Minutes or Less, where you get a summary of major stories from all corners of the globe, the latest coverage once a week. I am Naiman Mahmood, and this is the Week in Review of April 4th, 2021. Our main stories this week are the US's vaccination campaign, Brazil's COVID-19 handling, the rift between royals and Jordan, and the Israeli election. At the time of recording, there have been over 137 million confirmed COVID-19 infections, 2,951,000 deaths, and over 448 million first doses around the world. The United States' vaccination program has had very few pitfalls and is one of the most successful in the world. Just this week, over 20% of the US population is fully vaccinated. Additionally, a third of the US population has had at least one coronavirus shot. 3 million doses of the vaccine are administered each day in the United States. However, all has not been smooth sailing. US purchases of the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine have dropped by nearly 85%. This is due to workers at the plant for J&J and AstraZeneca accidentally conflating the vaccine's ingredients earlier. The second week of testimony ends on the state of Minnesota versus Derek Michael Chauvin, who is charged with the unlawful death of George Floyd during an arrest back in May. Dr. Martin Tobin, a renowned pulmonologist, testified that George Floyd died from asphyxia, ruling out overdose and a cardiac arrest. He walked through the prone position that made breathing impossible for Floyd. Police officers also testified that Chauvin's actions were a violation of the police department's policy.
Code Blue, ICU North, Bed 18. Code Blue, ICU North, Bed 18. Code Blue.
The coronavirus pandemic is currently ravaging Brazil. The country has hit a grim milestone of 4,427 deaths on Thursday. Experts warn that 5,000 in Brazil can lose their lives daily in April. Jair Bolsonaro's presidency has not helped. Social distancing is virtually non-existent. The vaccination program has been slow and riddled with problems. Under immense pressure from the Congress, many cabinet members, including the defense minister, resigned. Jair Bolsonaro's handling of the pandemic has grown extremely unpopular within the country. This has led to more people under the age of 40 to be in ICUs than older people. The Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, passed away on April 9th at the age of 99. He married Queen Elizabeth II in 1947 and has been by her side for over 70 years. They married in the midst of World War II, the abdication of King Edward VIII, and the unraveling of the British Empire. Despite all the challenges, the monarchy still stands as one of the last remaining active in the world. Greenland, a self-governing state under Denmark, has had an election. The left-wing party IA won 37% of the votes, ousting the ruling Social Democratic Party with only 29% of the vote. The heated topic within this election was over the creation of a rare earth metal mine. The election results suggest that was an unpopular platform. The IA party opposes any mine creation for rare earth metals, which are used mainly in computers and smartphones. The IA party hopes to focus on protecting the environment and bringing economic equity to the island nation. The European vaccination response has been riled with difficulty and setback. As countries like the United Kingdom and France remain in lockdown, the Oxford vaccine from AstraZeneca has had a confidence problem. The AstraZeneca vaccine can, in very rare occasions, cause an immune response resulting in blood clots and low platelet counts. There are over 220 suspected cases out of 34 million people vaccinated in Europe. 30 have passed away. Belgium, Italy, Spain, and many others have restricted the use of the vaccine to those older than 60 years of age. 12 people have been beheaded in an attack in Mozambique in the northern town of Palma. The attackers were claimed by the Islamic State. Locals described the victims as foreigners because they were white. Attacks from the Islamic State in the region have been on the rise. However, the link between their efforts in the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa is unclear. On Thursday, regional leaders from the countries South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Botswana met in Maputo, Mozambique's capital, to discuss a solution to the insurgency. Benin voters will partake in a presidential election on Sunday, just days after violent protests erupted against President Patrice Talon, whom critics suspect of vilifying his opponents. Pollsters within the region expect a re-election victory for him. Benin has a history of strong multi-party elections. However, critics say he is turning the country back towards authoritarian leadership. Within the protests, 2 people died when military troops threw tear gas and live rounds to break up the group of people. Nigeria has begun reclaiming artifacts, jewelry, and art that were stolen during its occupation from colonial powers in the mid-20th century. The National Museum of Ireland and South London's Horniman Museum have already begun to give back their stolen pieces. The treasures were initially stolen by the British Army during the British Empire. They were then sold throughout Europe and kept in museums throughout the continent. The biggest perpetrator is the British Museum in London, with more than 900 of these artifacts. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is experiencing severe health problems during his imprisonment from President Vladimir Putin. He has been on hunger strike for almost a week due to his demand for medical attention. He was imprisoned earlier in the year, back in January, after he returned from Germany where he recovered from poisoning. Some of the local prison authorities are accusing Navalny of faking his medical conditions. Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, brought up the situation during her phone call with President Vladimir Putin. The rift between the royals in Jordan has been making headwaves throughout the rest of the Middle East. The governments of King Abdullah II claim Prince Hamza bin al-Hussein, the ruler's half-brother and critic, campaigned to destabilize the government and overthrow it in a coup attempt. King Abdullah placed his half-brother under house arrest. Prince Hamza sent a video to reporters denying the allegations and lambasting King Abdullah's leadership. Princess Feryal, the aunt to both men, told them to stop having such a public rift and to grow up. The main concern here is that Jordan is one of the most stable countries within the region. Controversies within the government and kingdom are rare and unprecedented. Even so, never has there been a rift so public.
על פי המדגם של הפרופסור קמיל פוקס, זה עומד להיות לילה ארוך, מותח ומפתיע.
Israel has been through 4 elections in the span of 2 years. The 3 earlier elections ended inconclusively, and this upcoming election has proven to be just as inconclusive. Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party lost 6 seats. Many are suggesting that Israel will be headed for a 5th election. The reason Israel is going through so many elections is because of their proportional representation system, which gives benefits to smaller parties and disadvantages to bigger parties. It doesn't help that Israel is a deeply divided country. At the same time, Benjamin Netanyahu has pending trials of bribery, breach of trust, and fraud. Despite the lackluster results, Prime Minister Netanyahu will be the first party to form a coalition. He'll most likely form coalitions with other right-wing Zionist parties. With less than 100 days left, Japan is preparing for one of the world's largest sporting events, the Olympics. So far, no country has decided to withdraw from the Olympics except for North Korea. North Korea's sports ministry states their decision to withdraw was due to the worsening COVID-19 pandemic in Japan. This strikes a blow to South Korean diplomacy, where talks and official state meetings were to take place. South Korea's reunification ministry expressed sorrow over the decision and hoped for more opportunities for constructive talks in the future. Australia and New Zealand have been faring better than most in the COVID-19 pandemic. The two nations will start quarantine-free travel, creating a bubble between them. Starting April 19th, residents from both countries will be able to freely travel between the two island nations. The Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, stated that aggressive responses early on allowed them to open the travel bubble to their biggest neighbor. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison welcomed the decision, stating that New Zealanders were already able to travel to Australia without quarantining. Australia has recorded 909 deaths since the start of the pandemic, while New Zealand has reported 25. And that is all from me this week. Access to the transcript will be available soon. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to shoot me an email. Thank you for listening to my podcast Around the World in 10 minutes or less. Until next week, see you soon.